Would you spend nearly $1 million on someone who'd throw you away like garbage 3 days before the biggest moment of your life together? The chandelier cost $42,000. I remember because I held the invoice in my hand while sitting in that boutique in Milan, watching Cassie's eyes light up like I'd just handed her the moon. She'd seen it in some wedding magazine, this crystal monstrosity that looked like frozen starlight, and she'd whispered, "That's the one. That's what I want hanging over our reception." Not her reception, our reception, like I was getting married too. I signed the check without blinking. That was 8 months ago, back when I still believed that money could buy loyalty, back when I thought 23 years of friendship meant something more than a transaction, back when Cassie and I were still us and not whatever fractured, unrecognizable thing we became. The wedding was supposed to be in 4 days. Right now, I should be on a plane to the Amalfi Coast, checking my phone obsessively to make sure the flower shipments cleared customs, that the string quartet confirmed their arrival time, that the villa's chef received the updated dietary restrictions for the 140 guests I'd personally invited, paid for, and coordinated travel arrangements for. Instead, I'm sitting in my apartment at 2 in the morning, staring at a text message that's 3 days old, trying to understand how I became the villain in a story where I was supposed to be the hero. The text was short, brutal in its efficiency. "Hey, so this is really hard to say, but Marcus and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you don't come to the wedding. You've made this whole thing about you, and we need our day to be about us. We'll pay you back eventually. Hope you understand." Hope I understand. I read it 70 times that first night. I counted. Each time, I thought I'd find some hidden meaning, some secret message that would make it make sense. But there was nothing. Just 38 words that detonated 23 years of friendship like it was nothing more than a demolition project. Let me back up, because this didn't start with that text. This started when Cassie called me 13 months ago, crying so hard I thought someone had died. "He proposed," she'd sobbed into the phone. "Riley, he actually proposed." I'd screamed, actually screamed so loud my neighbors banged on the wall, because this was it. This was everything we'd talked about since we were 14 years old, sprawled on her bedroom floor, planning out our future weddings with the kind of detail usually reserved for military operations. She'd marry her soulmate in Italy, I'd be the maid of honor in a champagne-colored dress, we'd both cry during the vows, our kids would grow up together. Except I never found my person. The relationships came and went, each one ending with me wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't make it stick. But Cassie found Marcus. Sweet, stable Marcus with his software engineering job and his dad jokes and his absolute devotion to making Cassie happy. And I was happy for her, genuinely, painfully happy. "I want you to plan it," she'd said that night, after the screaming had died down to excited whispers. "I want you to plan the whole thing. You've always been better at this stuff than me." I should have said no. I should have suggested a wedding planner, someone professional, someone with boundaries. But instead, I heard myself say, "Tell me everything you've ever dreamed about, and I'll make it happen." That was my first mistake. The second mistake was treating her wedding like it was my own startup launch. See, I'd sold my tech company 3 years earlier, one of those stupid, lucky exits that Silicon Valley dreams are made of. Right place, right time, right investor who saw potential in my customer analytics platform. $43 million. After taxes and splitting with my co-founders, I walked away with $18 million. $18 million and absolutely no idea what to do with it. I'd bought the apartment, set up trust funds for my nieces, invested responsibly, donated generously, but there was still this vast ocean of money sitting in my accounts, making me feel guilty and unmoored and desperate to prove I deserved it. So when Cassie handed me her wedding, I saw it as a project, a purpose, a way to prove that money could create something beautiful, something meaningful, something that would justify my absurd good fortune. I started small, offering to cover the venue deposit, then the photographer she loved but couldn't afford, then the designer dress that made her cry in the boutique. Each time she'd protest weakly, and each time I'd wave her off with some variation of, "What's the point of having money if I can't spend it on the people I love?" And I meant it, every single time. The venue alone was $300,000. This renovated castle overlooking the Amalfi Coast, the kind of place that gets featured in architectural magazines and celebrity wedding spreads. 200 guests maximum. I'd invited 140 because Cassie's family could only come up with 30 names, and Marcus's family added another 60, and the thought of this spectacular venue half empty made my chest hurt. So I invited my friends, my colleagues, people who'd appreciate it, who'd make the atmosphere electric, who'd fill the space with the energy it deserved. "Are you sure?" Cassie had asked, chewing her bottom lip the way she did when she was nervous. "That's a lot of people we don't know." "They're my gift to you," I'd said. "Atmosphere, energy. You want this to be the party of a lifetime, right? Trust me." She'd hugged me, told me I was the best friend anyone could ask for. That was 6 months ago. The flowers were $80,000, imported roses in this specific shade of blush that Cassie had obsessed over for weeks, flown in from Ecuador because apparently Ecuadorian roses are superior in every measurable way. The florist looked at me like I was insane when I'd approved the quote, but I'd seen Cassie's face in the design consultation, and that was all that mattered. The food was another $150,000, 11-course tasting menu designed by a Michelin-starred chef who normally didn't do private events, but who made an exception because I'd offered triple his usual rate. Cassie had teared up during the tasting, holding my hand across the table, telling me she couldn't believe this was real. I couldn't believe it either. For the first time since selling my company, I felt like the money meant something, like I was building something that mattered. The dress was $60,000, custom Vera Wang, because Cassie had always dreamed of Vera Wang, with hand-embroidered lace and this cathedral train that took 3 people to carry. When she'd tried it on for the first time, she'd turned to me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I can't accept this. This is too much." But I'd already bought it, already had it tailored to her exact measurements, already arranged for the preservation and storage afterward so she could keep it forever. "You're not accepting it, I'm giving it. There's a difference." The breaking point came 6 weeks before the wedding, though I didn't recognize it as the breaking point at the time. We were having dinner at this new fusion place downtown, Cassie, Marcus, and me. It was supposed to be a casual check-in about final wedding details, but the tension had been building for weeks, subtle and insidious, like mold growing behind walls. "I was thinking," Cassie said, pushing her udon noodles around her plate, "maybe we should cut back on some of the floral arrangements. The ceremony arch doesn't need to be that elaborate." I'd laughed. Actually laughed, because the arch was one of my favorite elements, this living sculpture of roses and olive branches that the florist had spent weeks designing. "Are you kidding? That arch is going to be the most photographed element of the entire wedding." "That's kind of the problem," Marcus said quietly. I'd looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in weeks. There were dark circles under his eyes. His jaw was tight. He looked like a man preparing for battle. "What problem?" I asked. Cassie set down her fork, and I noticed her hand was shaking. "We need to talk about the guest list." "What about it?" "You invited 140 people. We know maybe 30 of them." I explained this, I said, feeling my defenses rising. "They're there to create atmosphere, to make sure the party doesn't feel empty. You want this to be memorable, right?" "Memorable for who?" Marcus's voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Because from where we're sitting, this feels like your wedding that we're just attending." The words hit me like a slap. "That's not fair. Everything I've done has been for you guys." "We never asked for an $800,000 wedding," Cassie whispered. "We wanted something small, intimate, something we could afford ourselves." But you couldn't afford what you wanted, I said, and immediately regretted it. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Cassie's eyes were filling with tears. Because it sounds like you're saying we're charity cases. No, I'm saying I have the resources to give you the wedding of your dreams, and I don't understand why that's suddenly a problem. Marcus leaned forward, his voice measured and careful. Because it stopped being our dream 3 months ago, maybe longer. Every decision, every detail, you've made them. You chose the menu, you picked the music, you selected the decorations. When was the last time you asked us what we wanted? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it, because he was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped consulting them. I'd stopped seeing this as their wedding and started treating it as my project, my vision, my masterpiece. I thought I was helping, I said weakly. You were, at first, but then it became about you showing everyone what you could do with your money, about proving something, and we got lost in it. We'd left that dinner with an uneasy truce. They'd promised to think about the guest list. I'd promised to step back, to let them make the final decisions. But the damage was done. Something had shifted between us, and I couldn't figure out how to shift it back. The next 4 weeks were torture. Every time I called Cassie, she was busy. Every text took hours to return. Marcus stopped responding entirely. I told myself they were stressed about the wedding, that this was normal pre-wedding tension, that everything would be fine once we got to Italy and the magic started happening. I threw myself into the final details. The welcome bags for guests, $200 each, filled with local delicacies and personalized gifts. The rehearsal dinner at a Michelin 3-star restaurant, $90,000 for 140 people I'd insisted should be included. The transportation logistics, private car services for every guest from Naples Airport to the Amalfi Coast, because I wanted everyone to arrive relaxed and ready to celebrate. I'd rented out an entire hotel for the weekend, not just rooms, the entire hotel, $300,000 so that everyone could stay together, so the celebration could flow seamlessly from event to event without anyone having to worry about logistics. Looking back, I can see how insane it was, how completely I'd lost perspective. But in the moment, each decision made perfect sense. Each expense felt justified. Each detail felt essential to creating the perfect experience. The photographer alone was $40,000, this award-winning artist who'd shot celebrity weddings and royal events. I'd hired a videographer for another $30,000, a drone operator for aerial shots, a second photographer for behind-the-scenes candids. I wanted every moment captured, every angle documented, every memory preserved in perfect high-resolution detail. The entertainment was $70,000, string quartet for the ceremony, jazz trio for cocktail hour, full band for the reception, DJ for the after-party. I'd created a timeline of music that flowed like a symphony, each transition carefully orchestrated to maintain energy and emotion. I'd hired a wedding planner, finally, but only to execute my vision. She'd tried, delicately, to suggest that maybe I should involve the bride and groom more in the decisions. I'd told her I had it under control, that I knew what they wanted better than they did, that 23 years of friendship meant something. God, I was so arrogant. 3 weeks before the wedding, Cassie asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. I'd been so relieved. Finally a chance to reconnect, to remind her why we were doing all this, to get back to the excitement and joy that had started this whole journey. She looked terrible, thin, pale, like she hadn't slept in days. "I need you to cancel some of the guests," she said before I'd even sat down. "Which ones?" "The ones we don't know, your friends, your colleagues. We want this to be intimate, just family and close friends." Cassie, we've been over this. The venue needs a certain number of people to feel right. The atmosphere. I don't care about the atmosphere. Her voice broke, loud enough that other customers turned to stare. I don't care about the perfect lighting, or the designer flowers, or the custom cocktails. I care about feeling like a bride at my own wedding, not a prop in your production. That's not fair. Everything I've done has been for you guys. We never asked for an $800,000 wedding, Cassie whispered. We wanted something small, intimate, something we could afford ourselves. But you couldn't afford what you wanted, I said, and immediately regretted it. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Cassie's eyes were filling with tears. Because it sounds like you're saying we're charity cases. No, I'm saying I have the resources to give you the wedding of your dreams, and I don't understand why that's suddenly a problem. Marcus leaned forward, his voice measured and careful. Because it stopped being our dream 3 months ago, maybe longer. Every decision, every detail, you've made them. You chose the menu, you picked the music, you selected the decorations. When was the last time you asked us what we wanted? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it, because he was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped consulting them. I'd stopped seeing this as their wedding and started treating it as my project, my vision, my masterpiece. I thought I was helping, I said weakly. You were, at first, but then it became about you showing everyone what you could do with your money, about proving something, and we got lost in it. We'd left that dinner with an uneasy truce. They'd promised to think about the guest list. I'd promised to step back, to let them make the final decisions. But the damage was done. Something had shifted between us, and I couldn't figure out how to shift it back. The next 4 weeks were torture. Every time I called Cassie, she was busy. Every text took hours to return. Marcus stopped responding entirely. I told myself they were stressed about the wedding, that this was normal pre-wedding tension, that everything would be fine once we got to Italy and the magic started happening. I threw myself into the final details. The welcome bags for guests, $200 each, filled with local delicacies and personalized gifts. The rehearsal dinner at a Michelin 3-star restaurant, $90,000 for 140 people I'd insisted should be included. The transportation logistics, private car services for every guest from Naples Airport to the Amalfi Coast, because I wanted everyone to arrive relaxed and ready to celebrate. I'd rented out an entire hotel for the weekend, not just rooms, the entire hotel, $300,000, so that everyone could stay together, so the celebration could flow seamlessly from event to event without anyone having to worry about logistics. Looking back, I can see how insane it was, how completely I'd lost perspective. But in the moment, each decision made perfect sense. Each expense felt justified. Each detail felt essential to creating the perfect experience. Then came the text. 3 days ago, 72 hours before I was supposed to board a plane to Naples with 140 guests I'd personally invited, coordinated, and financially committed to hosting for a 4-day destination wedding celebration. We think it's best if you don't come to the wedding. I'd read it in the middle of a work meeting, actually felt my hands go numb, felt the phone slip from my grip and clatter onto the conference table. My colleagues had stared at me with concern, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't respond, couldn't process what I'd just read. I'd excused myself, locked myself in a bathroom stall, and called Cassie. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Texted, "Please call me. I need to understand." Nothing. Called Marcus. He'd answered on the 5th ring, his voice strained and uncomfortable. "Riley, I can't talk right now." "What the hell is happening? What did I do?" "You know what you did. We've been trying to tell you for months." Then uninvite the guests I brought, change the plans. But don't uninvite me, please. I'm your best friend. Are you? His question hung in the air like poison. Because best friends don't hijack their friends' weddings. Best friends don't make everything about themselves. Best friends listen when you tell them to stop. I can fix this. Whatever I did wrong, I can fix it. It's too late. We've already told our families you're not coming. We've already reorganized the seating chart. We're moving forward without you. What about the money, the venue, the flowers, the food? I paid for all of it. And we'll pay you back. Eventually. We told you that. Eventually? Do you have any idea how much I've spent? No, actually, we don't. Because you never told us. You just kept adding things, kept making it bigger, kept turning it into this spectacle that has nothing to do with us getting married. I'd started crying then, ugly, desperate sobs that echoed off the bathroom tiles. Cassie is my best friend. She's been my best friend since we were 14 years old. You can't just erase that. We're not erasing it. You are. You erased it when you decided your vision was more important than our wishes, when you stopped seeing Cassie as a person and started seeing her as a project. That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me one thing about the wedding that Cassie specifically chose. One detail that was her decision, her preference, her vision. I'd opened my mouth to answer and found nothing. The dress? I'd chosen it. The flowers? I'd selected them. The venue? I'd found it. The menu? I'd designed it. Every single detail had been filtered through my taste, my aesthetic, my idea of perfection. She wanted a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, Marcus had said quietly. Did you know that? That was her original dream. 50 people, string lights, her mom's garden, something simple and beautiful and theirs. But you convinced her she wanted more. You told her she deserved more. You made her feel like her dream wasn't good enough. The line had gone dead after that. He'd hung up and I'd slid down the bathroom wall, hugging my knees, trying to understand how I'd become the villain in this story. I'd spent the last 3 days in a fog, canceling my flight, drafting and deleting dozens of text messages, stalking Cassie's social media for any hint of what was happening. She'd gone silent. No posts, no updates, just radio silence, while my entire world collapsed. The worst part wasn't the money. God, the money felt irrelevant now. The worst part was the slow, dawning realization that Marcus was right, that I'd taken Cassie's wedding, the most important day of her life, and made it about me, about my loneliness, about my desperate need to feel necessary, about proving that my money could buy something meaningful. I thought I was being generous, selfless, the ultimate best friend, giving her the wedding she couldn't afford. But I wasn't giving her what she wanted. I was giving her what I wanted, what I needed. A purpose, a project, a distraction from the emptiness in my own life. Last night, I did something I'm not proud of. I'd driven by Cassie's apartment at midnight, parked across the street, and just sat there, staring up at her darkened windows, hoping she'd see me, hoping she'd come down, hoping we could talk this through like we'd talked through every other crisis in our 23-year friendship. But the lights stayed off, the building stayed silent, and I'd driven home feeling like a stalker and a fool. This morning, I'd started getting messages from the guests I'd invited, confused questions about the wedding, whether it was still happening, whether they should still come. I've had to tell them, one by one, that I'd been uninvited, that the wedding was still on, but I wouldn't be there. Each conversation was humiliating. Each explanation felt like sandpaper on my soul. Wait, you paid for the whole thing and they uninvited you? That's insane! You should sue them! But that's the thing. I don't want to sue them. I don't want the money back. I want my best friend back. I want to rewind 8 months and make different choices. I want to be the friend Cassie needed instead of the friend I thought I should be. I've been thinking about the chandelier a lot these past few days. That $42,000 crystal monstrosity that made Cassie's eyes light up. The one that's currently being installed in a villa on the Amalfi Coast, hanging over a reception I won't attend. I wonder if she'll look up at it during the wedding, if she'll remember that moment in Milan when I signed the check without hesitation, when I thought money could buy happiness, when I believed that giving her everything I could afford was the same as giving her what she needed. I wonder if she'll feel guilty, if she'll wonder whether she made the right choice, if she'll miss me standing beside her when she says her vows, or if she'll just feel relief. Relief that she finally got her wedding back from me. Relief that she could celebrate without feeling like a guest at her own party. Relief that she could marry Marcus without my shadow looming over everything. I've drafted so many emails, so many texts, apologies that try to explain without excusing, explanations that sound like excuses, justifications that ring hollow even to me. But what would I say? I'm sorry I tried to buy your love. I'm sorry I made your wedding about my emptiness. I'm sorry I couldn't see that the best gift I could give you was letting you plan your own damn wedding. None of it feels adequate. Yesterday, something happened that made everything worse and somehow better at the same time. I'd been scrolling through my phone, torturing myself with wedding hashtags, when I found a post from Marcus's cousin. She'd shared a photo from what looked like a small ceremony in someone's backyard. String lights, garden flowers, maybe 50 people. The caption read, "Beautiful, intimate ceremony for Marcus and Cassie, exactly what they always wanted." They'd already gotten married 3 days before the Italy wedding, before I'd been uninvited. They'd had the wedding they actually wanted, the small backyard ceremony, the simple celebration, and they deliberately excluded me from that too. The Italy thing? That was just the party, the spectacle, the expensive show I'd created. But the real wedding, the moment that actually mattered, had already happened, without me. I'd stared at that photo for hours. Cassie in a simple white dress that probably cost $300, Marcus in a suit I recognized from their engagement photos, her parents crying in the background, his sister holding flowers that clearly came from someone's garden. It was perfect, absolutely perfect, everything they'd actually wanted. And I'd missed it because I'd been so busy planning a wedding they never asked for. The rage had come first. How dare they? How dare they get married without telling me, then expect me to fund their elaborate party? How dare they take my money and my time and my effort and exclude me from the thing that actually mattered? I drafted a text to Cassie, angry, bitter, listing every expense, every sacrifice, every moment I'd put their happiness above my own. I'd written about the loneliness, the nights I'd spent planning their wedding instead of building my own life, the way I'd poured all my love and desperation into a project that was supposed to prove I was worthy of my good fortune. But I didn't send it, because somewhere around 3 a.m, staring at that photo of their actual wedding, something clicked. They were happy, genuinely, radiantly happy in that backyard photo. Happier than they'd looked in any of the professional engagement photos I'd paid for. Happier than they'd been in months of planning the Italy spectacle. I'd spent $847,000 trying to make them happy, and all they'd wanted was string lights in a backyard. The money didn't matter. It never mattered. What mattered was that I'd been so consumed with creating the perfect wedding that I'd forgotten to be the friend they needed. I'd forgotten to listen. I'd forgotten that sometimes the best gift is stepping back and letting people choose their own path, even if you could afford to pave it in gold. I'd deleted the angry text and written a different one instead. I saw the photos. You looked beautiful. I'm sorry I couldn't see that this was what you wanted. I'm sorry I made everything about me. I hope Italy is everything you dreamed of, even if those dreams weren't the ones I forced on you. I love you. I'm sorry. Congratulations. I'd hit send before I could overthink it, before I could add qualifications or explanations or justifications. Just the truth. Simple, honest. Too late. She'd responded 2 hours later. Thank you. That means everything. I'm sorry too, for how we handled this, for not being honest sooner, for letting it get so out of control. You're still my best friend. You'll always be my best friend. We just need some time. Time. Such a small word for such a vast distance. This morning, I'd called my financial advisor and asked about the wedding expenses. Could I write them off? Could I recover anything? She ran the numbers and given me the brutal truth. $847,000, nearly all of it non-refundable. The venue deposit, the vendor contracts, the custom everything, all gone. That's a significant loss, she'd said carefully. You could potentially pursue legal action against the bride and groom for breach of contract or repayment. No, I said immediately, no legal action. Because here's what I've realized over these 3 days of forced reflection. The money was never really about them. It was about me. About filling the void in my life, about proving that money could buy meaning, about having something to pour myself into so I didn't have to face the fact that I'd built a successful company but failed to build a successful life. The wedding was my project because I didn't have anything else. No partner, no kids, no consuming passion beyond work. Just money and time and a desperate need to feel necessary. Cassie gave me that, or I thought she did. I thought planning her wedding was an act of love, but really it was an act of desperation. I was clinging to her, to our friendship, to this role I'd assigned myself, because without it, I didn't know who I was supposed to be. $847,000 to learn that you can't buy your way into meaning, that generosity without boundaries is just control with better PR, that the best way to love someone is to listen to what they actually need, not drown them in what you think they deserve. I've been thinking about what happens next. The Italy wedding is tomorrow. 140 guests are about to celebrate a marriage that already happened in a venue I paid for, at a party I'm not invited to. That $42,000 chandelier will hang over a reception where my absence will probably feel like a relief. Part of me wants to show up anyway, to stand outside the villa and watch from a distance, to see if it was worth it, if the wedding I created is as beautiful as I imagined. But I won't, because that would be making it about me again, and I've done enough of that. Instead, I'm going to sit here in my apartment and finally face the thing I've been avoiding for 3 years. What do I actually want my life to be? Not what can I buy, not what can I create for other people, but what do I want for me? I don't have an answer yet. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the first step is admitting I don't know, that I've been so busy trying to prove my worth through grand gestures that I forgot to build a life worth living. I've started therapy. First session is next week. I told the therapist about the wedding, about the money, about the friendship that might be broken beyond repair. She'd listened quietly and then asked a question that made me cry. If you could go back and keep the money but lose the friendship, or lose the money but keep the friendship, which would you choose? The friendship, I said immediately. Always the friendship. Then you already know what matters. Tomorrow, while Cassie and Marcus are celebrating in Italy, I'm going to volunteer at a local nonprofit, something I've meant to do for years, but never made time for, something that has nothing to do with money or grand gestures or proving anything to anyone. I'm going to start building a life that doesn't require $800,000 to feel meaningful. I'm going to learn what it means to be generous without being controlling, to love without demanding, to give without expecting anything in return, not even gratitude. And maybe, if I'm very lucky and I do the work and I learn the lessons, Cassie and I will find our way back to each other. Not as the people we were, those versions of us are gone, burned up in the wreckage of this disaster, but as new versions, wiser, more honest, more careful with each other's hearts. Or maybe we won't. Maybe some friendships don't survive this kind of betrayal, no matter whose fault it was. But either way, I'll be okay. Not because I have money, not because I can buy my way out of pain, but because I'm finally ready to do the hard work of figuring out who I am when I'm not trying to be someone's savior. The Chandelier is hanging in Italy right now, $42,000 of crystal and light casting rainbows across a room I'll never see. I hope it's beautiful. I hope it makes people gasp when they walk in. I hope it creates the magic I imagined. But more than that, I hope Cassie is happy. I hope Marcus is happy. I hope they look around at their celebration and feel joy instead of obligation. I hope they dance under my chandelier and forget, for just a moment, about the cost. Because love shouldn't have a price tag. Friendship shouldn't have a price tag. And the sooner I learn that, the sooner I can start building something real. $847,000, the most expensive lesson of my life. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth it.